Hi loves, welcome to Discover You podcast. This is a community where you can show up exactly as you are, learn, grow, and discover how to stand in the power of who you want to be. I'm your host, Shar. Welcome, and let's dive in and discover you. Well, hello you guys. Welcome back to the podcast, Discover You podcast, episode 6. We're diving back in this week, talking all about spirituality. So if you're listening on Apple or Spotify or directly through Buzzsprout for the podcasts, thanks so much for tuning back in. And if you're joining me over on YouTube, saying hello to you from here. I'm also filming the podcast this week in video, so it is a dual purpose. Content here. So we're sharing it on the podcast, we're sharing it on YouTube. So hello, thank you for following along. Be sure to follow the podcast on your listening device, and of course be sure to subscribe and follow me along over on YouTube so you can not miss an episode wherever you're listening from. So today we are talking about spirituality, which is something that is a really, really vast topic, but I really wanted to hone in on talking about what spirituality is, how to start a spiritual practice or how that looks like, and also sharing probably quite a bit about my own spiritual journey, because it has honestly just been a really, really transformative year where I've spent the last 20 months of the pandemic really diving deeper into my spiritual self, my spiritual awakening, and just kind of uncovering so much. So we're going to really break it down, talk about simple ways to start a practice, how to attain a practice, what it even means to be spiritual. So we're just going to dive into all of the Sharway perspectives on spirituality and what the heck it is, because can be anything you want, really. So with all of that said, let's dive into the podcast today on episode 6, and let's discover you. All right, so spirituality. What the heck is spirituality? So I came up with this idea as I was working through some of my spiritual practice this past week, feeling a lot of connection to myself and really kind of diving deeper into my practice and talking with a few different people about what the spiritual practice looks like. And this is going to be a little bit more off the cuff podcast this week, because I have a few key points I really want to take you guys through, and I want to really, make it attainable to discover your own spirituality and your own path in this. But this is very much an episode that I'm feeling called to share, and I'm just going to end up getting hits and getting messages and getting information downloads, as you could say, from source. So I feel like we're just going to let it flow. We're in this movement this week with a few different things happening energetically in the world. So I'm just kind of feeling the flow of let's just talk about it. Let's just dive in. So hold on, get yourself cozy, get some water, some tea, or a delicious snack, and let's dive in a little bit more about what spirituality is, because it's kind of a loaded word. So I feel like people often associate spirituality as being a hippie, or having long hair, or wearing boho clothing, or not showering, or all of these different weird connotations around spirituality, which it just seems bizarre that we there's a label around things, and you're a hippie if you practice meditation, or you're really energy weird, or whatever, all of these stereotypes. And I think the most important thing to remember in your spiritual self or in a spiritual place is that it doesn't need a label. So you don't need to associate as a spiritual person. You don't need to define yourself as a spiritual person. And you definitely don't need to put a label of you're a hippie, or you're a witch, or XYZ, whatever that is. So I really feel that spirituality is just an energetic exchange. It is a belief in a higher power. It is a belief in a higher source, that something is watching over you. Perhaps something is, some entity or energy is kind of guiding the path, and you're just taking the steps forward in your own path in the grand scheme of things. So it's kind of like, I guess you could say, God, spirit, source, higher power, whatever you want to call it. It's kind of whatever aligns with you. So like for me personally, I know that growing up my whole life, my parents didn't practice any type of religion. So I didn't have a religion. I didn't have, Christianity or Catholic or any of those things. I didn't associate with anything. I was just like, I'm just here. So for a long time, like in my teens, I remember thinking, okay, well maybe I'm like atheist? So whatever the belief is that doesn't believe in God, I was like, oh, maybe I'm like in that belief system. Like I don't have a belief in God. And I thought that in my teen years, and then I was like, well, I'm not really associated with a practice of people or a group, so it was never really like a thing for me. But as I got into my late teens, into my 20s, I really started to find some more deepening into spirituality. So my first entry into that was getting into yoga and practicing yoga. So there is an energetic movement in yoga. It is moving meditation. So for me, that was what I considered, a spiritual practice, because it's very much about energy exchanges. It's about believing in, you're going to get on the mat, you're going to move your body, and you're going to feel good. So you're putting that intention into your mat, and you're creating energy around that. So that was kind of how it started for me, and it just continued, because when you do yoga, you try different types of yoga, and then you learn meditations or breathing practices, and it kind of just allows you to have a space, square on your mat, that you're like, okay, this is my energy space, and this is my little spiritual practice that I do to feel good. So that was kind of how my journey started, and I really truly believe that a spiritual practice or a belief system is rooted in what feels good to you. So if you feel like you do something and you align with it, then like that's great, and that might be your spiritual thing. It doesn't have to work for you, but if it does and it feels good, then I feel like you just follow that path. You allow the awareness of like, okay, I went to this yoga class and I felt really great. So I'm going to lead myself down this path to uncover more, discover more, and kind of just like what feels good, right? Like you're not going to eat something from the grocery store and then like have a bad experience, be like, oh yeah, I'm going to eat that again, right? You have that awareness to be like, oh, it was kind of yucky, or I didn't feel good. So it's the same thing with spirituality. It's like, okay, well, I meditated and it's like not for me, or like I did breathing and it's not for me, or I did yoga and it's not for me. So like it doesn't have to even be those things. That's just kind of like a really generic example of what spirituality can be. But it can also be just having an appreciation for nature, getting outside in nature and like putting your feet in the grass and like going into the woods. Like you can have a deepened connection with energy in a physical standpoint too, just by like feeling the moment. Being present in the moment is very much a spiritual practice. So you can really slice it however you like. And it might be, maybe none of those things are your thing. Maybe it's tarot cards or oracle cards. Maybe it's crystals, like all the crystals I have here behind me, if you can see on YouTube. It really can just be what draws you. And I think that's the purpose in a spiritual belief system, is that you're reaching for a purpose. You're reaching for a higher power to guide you and to support you, and to open this path up of uncovering things about yourself, or learning about yourself, or feeling better in your body. So it's like that human experience of like, okay, I'm doing something and finding and reaching for something to feel good, to feel purposeful. So that is kind of what spirituality is. And of course, if you guys have different versions of this or different experiences, I'd love to hear in the comments below on YouTube. And also, if you guys aren't following on social media, send me a DM there, connect with me. And of course, if you can review the podcast, leave any messages down below. I'd love to hear from you guys, what you're feeling and thinking about the podcast. Your feedback's always so important. So how to become more spiritual? I hear this question a lot from people that I know. They're like, how do you do this? Or like, how do you know what's next? And I think that the biggest thing around spirituality is that we are allowing ourselves to have self-awareness. So that is a big component of spiritual work. is that you're having this awareness of self. So say you're experiencing really bad mental health struggles or battling your mental health. So perhaps leaning into something like a meditation, like a group that does meditations, perhaps tapping practices or using essential oils. So leaning into like things that might allow you to start to support something in your life. That's usually where a spiritual practice comes in. It just in the personal experience I have, I really feel that most people won't start diving in or uncovering something or getting into something if they've never had a reason to. If you just truck through life and have no awareness and you're just like, oh, I feel shitty, but I'm going to keep living this way and keep cruising on this path, which is totally fine if that's what you want to do. You want to cruise by the podcast and miss all of the good content, then do that. But if you're here for a purpose. You're here because you want to go deeper. You're awakening and wanting the awareness of being like, hey, I want more. And you may already be doing more. You may already be way past all the things I just mentioned. Or you may just be starting. And that's okay wherever you are. Having that rooted awareness and being like, okay, I want to feel better. Or being like, I want to uncover or discover what's going on in my body or my mind or my heart. Are you dealing with a broken heart, a trauma, someone hurting you, like whatever it is there something that's happening in your existence that you're like, I want to find a way to support this? And there's many caveats to this. You can, have the belief in the Western medicine world and reach for something like that to support you or a therapist, that kind of stuff. Or you can create more of a spiritual place where you're reaching for more holistic practices, more attunement and awareness with yourself. Or you can reach for other avenues like working out or, there's just a million different caveats of how you can choose to take the path. But I think it comes down to really just finding that self voice, that inner voice of like, okay, what do I need? What do I need? What is it that I need? And you might not know the answer. The answer of knowing what you need, trust me, is like far down the road. And we don't know. None of us know what we need. We just know that something's not working. And like I said, you're here for a purpose. You're listening for a purpose because you want more. You want to feel better. You want to feel greater. You want to feel more aligned. You want to feel more powerful in yourself. And that's what we're here to do, is to allow the space and allow ourselves to be in the present moment, to be like, okay, I need help. I don't know what it is yet, but we're going to uncover it. And that's the work that we're truly doing here today and every day. So I think that becoming more spiritual, coming back to that question of how to become more spiritual, I think step number one is being aware with yourself and going, okay, I want more. So now what's next? And then when you find that voice saying, I want more, I need more, trying different things out, seeing what works. So for me, I've always been a very aware person. I've always been a very energetic person where I feel people's energies, I feel emotions. I'm very sensitive. I'm an empath. If you're an empath, you understand, you relate to this. So I've always had a higher, intuitive nudge, like that feeling of like driving down the road and you're like, oh, I'm going to take this turn that I always take every Friday. And then you're like, oh, I shouldn't go that way. I shouldn't turn that way. I should take a different route. Like there's an intuitive, voice speaking to you and saying, okay, maybe you should take the other path. So that can just be one example of being aware and being tuned in to, higher source, power, God, spirit, whatever it might be for you. So starting to pay attention to those little things, those little, tidbits that you're hearing or getting, little messages, little signs. If you see the repeating numbers, if you see a certain sequence, you see a certain thing, those are all signs that there's something trying to connect and trying to tune into you. It's like, hey, I'm here, I'm watching, I'm listening. So that's just one little area of it. But really what it comes down to when you start to go down this path is you start to become more aware. You start to see things. You start to feel things. And as I've gone through my journey in my personal practice, it started with yoga. Yoga has always just been my love and passion forever, it feels like. But I also got really into essential oils about 6 years ago. Essential oils are just, they're in every day, every part of my existence. And they allow me to feel more present. They allow me to tune into my body. They heal my body. They support my immune system. There's so many things that I feel so aligned to and feel so like excited about. Like it's like that excitement of like finding the joy in the things that you're doing. It doesn't even have to be a practice. It doesn't have to be work. It's just, it is all of those things as you go through the motions of them, because you're learning, you're growing, you're wanting to do better, to learn more, to uncover more. So essential oils is kind of where my thing went. And then I went through my yoga teacher training, which I went through my spiritual awakening then, which we can talk about in a different podcast. That can be, it's a pretty intense topic, and I think that we'll save that for another podcast. Comment below if you guys want me to talk about what your spiritual awakening is and how that whole thing looks. But I went through my spiritual awakening in my yoga teacher training, and then I just continued to unravel even more. I just wanted to learn more, and I think that is the beautiful part about having a practice in place and figuring out what you like. So for me, it's been pretty expansive. It was yoga, spiritual awakening, and then I found crystals and essential oils and combine those things. And then I got really heavy into meditation and breathing practices, and now even deeper into connecting with a higher source and a higher power. My spirit guides and angels, you could call them as well. It can be another part of your spiritual family. Connecting with moon energy and star energy, galactic energy. And this leads to so many things. The more that you kind of start to tap in, the more the path starts to unfold in front of you, and you're doing this work to find spirituality and to be like, okay, I like this thing, and then you're like, oh, I like this pretty rock, and then like, ooh, this rock feels really good, and like it just kind of keeps going. So I don't even think that you have to necessarily create a spiritual practice. I think that it happens, it comes to you. You start to allow the space for it to open up and to be here. You go, it's almost like going like to the universe and being like, hey, like I really want to just like learn more about like feeling good, or I want to learn more about rocks or essential oils, like whatever your thing is. I want to learn more about self-awareness. Like it can be super simple, super vague, or it can be super detailed, but like it's almost like you're saying hey, and it's just like the thing is kind of just plunk. It's like a form of manifesting, I guess you could say, where you're kind of just like, I want to try this, and then you just start doing it, and it starts happening, and it just starts like unraveling. And it may sound like super intense and a lot of stuff, and I personally, like, I'm a Scorpio rising, I'm a little bit batshit crazy, and I love to self-work, I love to self-grow. So like my journey has been very expansive, but it's also been over like 10 years of just like uncovering more and working through personal things and working through trauma. And I feel like when you're looking for something, it just kind of appears. And it's a good example. I went to the Goodwill here in town on the weekend, and I've been secretly wanting to, as much as I don't want to admit it, work on being so aggressive and judgmental, and I have a tendency to be very angry and to be very vocal about how people piss me off and all of those things. And not that I vocalized any of this to the universe or said anything to anybody besides my best friend. I'm looking through the books, and poof, out pops Gabby Bernstein's Judgment Detox book. And to find her books at thrift stores is very rare. And then to find her hardest, most challenging book that a lot of people struggle to even get through because the work is really, really hard. I was like, oh, well, this is just pludunking in my lap. So here we are. Thank you, Spirit. Thank you, Source. I'm listening. I'm doing it. I'm working on it. So that's that. So it's almost like you put an energy and a commitment into something of wanting to, say you want to eat healthier, say you want to move your body, say you want to feel better in your mental health, whatever your mission or your goal is. Maybe these spiritual things can allow you, whether it's a book, a counselor, an essential oil, a yoga class, a fitness class, whatever it is, that exchange of energy is allowing you to expand into rooting into that spiritual practice and forming that practice. And this can be so unique to everybody. It might not be something that you do where you sit down and, journal out things and write things out or cry or meditate or whatever. It might not be your jam, and that's okay. A lot of people can't meditate. Meditation is like one of the most challenging things ever, in my personal opinion. Just because I've been trying to do it forever, and it's like my brain doesn't stop. So it can be kind of that beautiful path of allowing it to expand and being like, I want this and I'm doing this, but what is this? What is it, right? And like I said, it's just number one, find that awareness around what you're looking for, or what you're, one little thing you're trying to attain, or you're trying to heal or work through, and then allowing the space to just figure out a thing that you like that allows you to have that space to do it. So maybe it's crafting, maybe it's journaling, maybe it's photography. Creating that space where you can just be present and be in the moment and be rooted in yourself, to allow the space for the intuition to come, for the thoughts to come, for the ideas to spark. Just really allowing that space is really what will allow you to take it to the next level and to continue to do the work and continue to chip away at it, because at the end of the day, if you're not growing, you're dying. And I truly, truly believe that growth is the greatest thing you can ever do for yourself. It is the most powerful thing when you can tune into yourself and be like, I'm going to do the work. And yeah, some days you don't do the work. Some days you just want to lay on the couch and do nothing. I do that. I'm absolutely 100% guilty of doing that, because some days life is just too much. But I know that after a few days, I need to get back to working out. I need to get back to doing yoga. I need to get back into connecting and being present with myself, to allow space for these things to expand and to open up and to feel good in my mental health. So just knowing that it doesn't have to be an overnight thing. This is a journey. The spiritual work, it's a journey. Whether you're into the spirituality or you believe in a different higher source or a power, that's totally your decision and your call on all of that. But just know that the work and the investment in yourself, and that is what it is. It's not even an investment in your spiritual work. It's an investment in yourself. It's an investment to commit to who you are, to uncover who you are. Because I feel like we go through life and we just grind and hustle and move and keep pushing forward in our 9 to 5 rinse and repeat routine, and it's like, but no, like we're not even feeling, we're not existing, we're not in joy, we're not loving it. And I think that most people live in a state where they are so unhappy and they are so disconnected from their true essence, their true self, their true purpose, that we are just existing, and we're not living in that space of fullness and oneness with ourselves, that awareness with ourselves. And that's the really gritty part of this whole thing, is that when you have a practice, spiritual or not, you're allowing that space to be there with it, to be in that energy with it, and to allow the creation to come, allow the spark of life to come, allow the realizations of, oh, I really want to just like travel more instead of doing X, Y, and whatever. So having the moments where you're like, okay, I can sit for 20 minutes and journal and think about it and feel it and be like, okay, what's next? Where do I want to go from here? Because if we're not living and breathing and existing in our world and in our life, what are we doing? We're just hanging out, wake up, do the same shit all over again, and then go back to bed and do it all. Like, it's just this revolving door of unintention. And I really think that that's why spiritually, I've been more and more drawn to wanting to be connected, to wanting to find my purpose, to want to create content and to talk to you guys and to share, because it kills me to spend all day exerting my energy for somebody else. That's not my purpose. That's not why I'm here. You know, there's a lot of beautiful things about a job and all of the things that come with that, and I have so much gratitude for everything I have. You don't grow up and go, okay, I'm gonna, go work at a grocery store, or I'm gonna go be a receptionist, or whatever it is. You don't go and you don't dream that. You don't dream your life to be this job. Most of the time, we just end up in this job and go, okay, well, it's good. It's got, good hours and good pay and, good benefits, and I get vacation, and my boss is flexible, and blah, 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 blah. We don't actually grow up and go, okay, this is what I want to do with my life. Most of us aren't living our purpose, our dharma. Our dharma is our life's purpose. Most of us are trying to just manage and exist, or we're just not creating that space. And I really feel that the deeper that you can create a practice and dive into a spiritual practice, the more understanding you'll have of yourself, of your purpose, of who you are, of who you want to be. And that's the really beautiful part about it, is it doesn't come overnight. It doesn't come in a week of meditating for 2 minutes. It comes with years and years of just trying different things, uncovering different things, finding different passions, finding joy, finding community or connection. The beautiful part is in the journey of uncovering yourself. And I've spent the last 20 months of the pandemic uncovering so much that it's just more than I could ever share with you guys in this episode of the podcast. We can talk about it in another, caveat of spirituality if we want. But it's allowed me to really expand, to really go deeper, and to uncover so much about myself and work through so much stuff, and becoming more connected to my past lives. I've been doing a lot of past life work. I've been doing a lot of vulnerability work, a lot of just really deep self-love stuff. So it's definitely something that we can do another podcast on and talk more about. Even might have a guest speaker on to talk about some of these things. But there's just always so much to share with you guys. And let me know when you review the podcast, or in the comments down below on YouTube, if you're wanting to learn more, you want me to be more open about these things, or do a Q&A style where you guys can ask me questions. I'm definitely open to all of those things, and just sharing more about my personal practice and myself, because I'm definitely an open book. So I will definitely share any of those things with you. So anyway, to round out and close out today's podcast, what is spirituality? It's whatever you want it to be. It is the essence of you and your purpose and your passion, and allowing that space and that awareness for yourself to just be, to uncover what you find joy in, what brings you happiness, and how you can kind of grow that and blossom. It's like basically you're just planting a little plant. You're putting it in a little pot. You're putting some seeds in there. It can be just seeds right now, just seeds and dirt. You just put them in. And then you're I just want to be happier. And then you just water it and let it grow. And then it just continues to grow. So it's this beautiful thing that takes time, but it's so magnificent. So creating that practice can be anything you want, from yoga, working out, connecting to nature, just being in the presence, in the moment of your life. There's no one way, there's no one size fits all. It's just allowing space for it to start to unfold in front of you, and starting to throw those things out there and be what do I want? How do I want to feel? How do I want to, do this? And just starting to ask and put those things out there that it's kind of just in the air floating around you. So it sounds a lot, it sounds a little woo-woo, sounds a little simpler than it is, but it's literally just starting to have those thoughts and those conversations with people, aligning with people that are in the same headspace as you, or on a path of their own, or maybe they're further along the path than you are. That's like huge in understanding, because you can have these thoughts in your brain and you're like, oh my God, like I think this and I want to do this and I'm like, don't know what this means and don't understand this. And when I found my spiritual family a year ago, I tell you, it was like life-changing to connect with humans who spoke my language, who are an old soul like I am, who are empaths, who struggle to exist in life, who are so energetically sensitive and emotional. So it's a really beautiful space when you find others that can walk this path with you. And then finally, just spending this time in this journey of uncovering spirituality and tapping into the source and connecting to, maybe spirit or a higher power, whatever that might be for you. Just starting to discover you, to uncover you in this process, in this journey. This is about how we can make you happier and healthier and more powerful and more amazing in who you are. And that is the true beauty of spirituality, is that it is so dynamic, it is always changing, it is always unique and specific to what you want to put the energy into and what you want to create. So I hope that this episode of the podcast helps you to understand a little bit more about spirituality, to understand a little bit more about how you can start to implement a practice, and just knowing that it's all in your control. And you will find the people and the things along the way as you start to uncover and discover all these different things and go down this path. The path will unfold before you a lot easier than you think it might. So I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Be sure to follow on the podcast wherever you're listening, on Apple or Spotify. Links are also on my Instagram and social media. Everything is linked down below. Be sure to follow me over there. And if you're watching on YouTube, subscribe. Head over there. Check out my YouTube channel. There's lots of different content on there on wellness, health products, beauty, you name it. It's all there. So I hope that you guys have an amazing rest of your day, thinking about your spirituality, uncovering it. I will see you guys in next week's episode on Discover You Podcast. Bye, guys.